God. Are you serious? Have you seen that thing on YouTube? I don't know. Nobody turned this on, so you're not getting a mic. Right? So, there you go. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay.
This is Seattle.
I can hear you fine. That's all that really matters.
Really?
Sorry to put you on the spot here. It's one of those buttons. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed House of Bamboo. That was a. Hope you enjoyed House of Bamboo. That was an absolutely spectacular print, and you know, I always take time to thank the studios that care enough to actually preserve the films that they have. So I thank 20th Century Fox for that absolutely terrific print of that film. It's really, really hard to preserve color. Difficult enough to do what we do in black and white, but really hard to preserve color. So I'm very glad that they did that. It's terrific. And somebody in the lobby just mentioned that this was the second Star Trek connection in the week, because I did not mention at the top of the thing that, of course, DeForest Kelley, Bones on Star Trek, appears in this film as one of the gang members. It was kind of interesting. And the other night we had seen Thieves Highway, and the character of Pete is played by Joe Pevney, who directed the very first episode of Star Trek that was on television. Went on to become a very successful director after being a character actor in these films. So, yeah, the Star Trek connection. Who knew? Between film noir and, you know. The film you're about to see is a film that was hugely influential in my, development as a cineast, or whatever you want to call it. I just remember seeing this film when I was a teenager and being not only blown away by the intensity of the filmmaking, but just there was something about the way Sam Fuller directs scenes that is so unexpected and so unusual. At times it's kind of awkward. It's like, I can't believe I'm actually seeing it photographed this way. It's so unusual. But man, he has the greatest close-ups in this film, and the shots of Cliff Robertson, all the close-ups of Cliff Robertson in this movie are absolutely amazing. So like I was saying earlier in my introduction about everything that Sam Fuller does is kind of a war movie. Underworld USA fits that description completely. Clearly this is a movie about the war between the federal government and organized crime. You know, if you're old enough to remember this, in the 1950s, the revelations about the inroads that organized crime had made into American society was pretty shocking and scandalous, and it was one of the first major phenomenons on television in the United States, was the broadcasting of congressional hearings about organized crime, the Kefauver Commission and all this stuff. And that's when people started to, for the first time, hear the names of, you know, Frank Costello and Lucky Luciano and all these guys, who are very, very significant figures in 20th century American history. But it was like a shadow history that we didn't really know about. And so at the end of all these films exploded in the 1950s with these revelations, and you had these expose movies talking about the combination, the syndicate, you know, and all this stuff that were controlling what was actually going on in the United States of America. I mean, certainly controlling all the vice, but then the ability they had to operate within the big cities because they were, you know, in the pocket, or the politicians were in the pocket of organized crime. So the film you're about to see is about all of that, but Sam Fuller's way of treating this subject is to really focus on one individual person and his own personal vendetta against these men who would become big shots in organized crime. And this is very indicative of the way Sam Fuller looked at everything, because they could never pin a label on him. which is fascinating because at various times in his career, he was excoriated by the left because they thought that he was an arch conservative because he'd served in the military, and he had, in some aspects of his personality, he had very conservative values. And then the conservatives didn't like him because they thought he was a bleeding heart liberal. And in fact, it was just the fact that he was an incredible individualist. And in all of his stories, he was really focusing on the individual. And he kind of famously, when he made a great war film called Merrill's Marauders, and they wanted John Wayne to star in the film. The producers wanted John Wayne to star in the film. And Sam Fuller said he would never make a picture with John Wayne because he was a phony war hero. He just said it. He just said, no, I don't like John Wayne. I don't want to work with John Wayne. He didn't actually fight in the war. He actually believes that war has heroes. And he says, there are no heroes in war. There are just survivors. And I thought that was just an absolutely fantastic quote, you know. So you will see the way he treats this subject, this war between organized crime and the feds in this movie is pretty amazing. And Cliff Robertson gives a really, really intense performance in this film. A pretty interesting actor who, you know, won an Oscar when he played Charlie. You know, they joke now that the way to win an Oscar is to play a mentally retarded person. Like, you can't lose if you do that. But Cliff Robertson was one of the first people to do that quite effectively on screen when he played this character Charlie in the movies. But he came to prominence because he played John F. Kennedy in the story PT 109, which was about Kennedy's naval service. And he gives an absolutely amazing performance, I think, in this film. And unlike anything else really on Cliff Robertson's resume. Another weird thing about Fuller is that he always cast besides the main actor, there's a lot of people that you've never really seen before in his movies. The actress who plays Cuddles in this film, Dolores Dorn, really was not that well known. She didn't make a lot of other pictures until the 70s when she made two titanic exploitation films, Truck Stop Women and The Candy Snatchers. I'm sure Dolores doesn't like to have those films referenced. And then she ended up becoming an acting teacher at the American Film Institute in Hollywood. But she's great in this film. I mean, it's one of those memorable performances where it's like, why haven't I ever seen this person before, and why didn't I ever see them again? But the character of Cuddles is very unique, you know. And Sam was a guy who, you know, he'd write these scripts, and it's like, she's a drug courier. And it's explicitly stated in this film. And nobody else was writing films quite like this at the time. And that was that newspaper man in Fuller who said, no, I'm going to tell you what the real story is behind all this stuff. But he did it in such a, what I always call a smash mouth style, that he wasn't always taken seriously because he was so pulpy, and, you know, he was a guy who, you know, shove everything right up into the lead in the story and just whack people right between the eyes. And man, Underworld USA does that. It whacks you right between the eyes. So I'm glad you stuck around for the second half of this double bill. I absolutely love this film, and I'm very happy to be able to share it with you tonight. So this is it, the penultimate night of Noir City. Thanks for coming out, and I hope you all come back tomorrow night when we finish with Bad Girls Night. You have to be here for that. If you've never seen a Hugo Haas movie, we're closing the festival this year with a Hugo Haas film, Pickup. Wow. You got to see that to believe it. Okay. Enjoy Underworld USA. Thank you.